This is the point at which it usually starts to feel like I'm at an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Adria Vassal, and yes, I'm an ecoholic. Not sure if you've heard of ecoholic before today, but I thought I'd give you a little background on it. I have been writing the ecoholic advice column now for almost a decade. Started writing it in 2004. And people write in every week with questions regarding sustainability in some way or another, often green consumer sustainability. And so I guess you could say I'm sort of like a green Dear Abby. But instead of people writing in with questions like, how can I convince my cheap boss to give me a raise, I get, how can I convince my cheap boss to go green? And instead of, what do I do about my no-good, two-timing, lazy boyfriend? I get, what do I do about my roommate who won't stop bringing bottled water home? And sprinkled in the mix, I get all kinds of questions like, can chemical pollutants give you ADHD? And how bad is a Tim Hortons drive-through for idling? As well as some odder ones like, can I drink my dehumidifier water? I didn't know if that had been researched before. I was breaking new ground there. And I'd say the answer to that one is probably safely, put it in your plants and not in your thermos. Maybe you could run it through a reverse osmosis system, but we're getting complicated there. So stick to the plants. Now, if you think that to do a job like mine, a column like mine, I must have been raised by some hippy-dippy tree hugger parents, it's pretty much the opposite scenario altogether. I grew up like any normal Canadian kid in the 80s in Quebec. And, we ate a lot of Velveeta, a lot of TV dinners, a lot of Chef Boyardee, and I remember having a lot of Dep gel in my hair. Anyone from the 80s remember Dep gel? By the age of 8, I had like a flock of seagulls haircut. I don't know, it was awful, but a lot of petroleum involved in those days in the hair. And my parents moved us from Montreal, where I was born, to the chemical valley, basically chemical town of Shawinigan, where our old Prime Minister Chrétien was from, not to open up a health food store, but to open up a, I don't know how to say this exactly, but a McDonald's. Yeah, pretty much the antithesis to the sustainability movement. So you can imagine why that was a fact that I buried deeply as a young teenage activist when I got to that point. I decided that I did not want people to know about it back then, but I have decided to come clean with this because, you know what, it's obviously been part of what made me who I am today. Every step in our lives has brought us to where we are today. And so I guess in some way, eating all those Big Macs made it so that my poor parents ended up with 4 vegetarian or semi-vegetarian environmentalist alternative health nuts. Must be in there somewhere. Anyway, good for the family. We moved away from the McDonald's and the Shawinigan, moved back to Montreal. We all started getting healthy. And around that time, it was the late 80s. And I remember sitting down one night next to my dad to watch the news. To this day, it is still the only thing he watches. Lucky for him, there are now 24-hour news channels. So sit down next to him, and it was actually 24 years ago this month that the Exxon Valdez oil tanker crashed off the coast of Alaska. And I was 13, sat down, watching next to Pops going, oh my God. And I remember just being horrified. I was shocked by the images of seabirds and sea life being smothered to death by all that black shiny oil. If any of you remember those images, they were just crushing. And same things happened in many news stories since. But for me, that was, I think, my first moment of environmental awakening, where I suddenly realized that there was a world outside of my family doorstep where things weren't always going right, and where there were a lot of really, just really difficult things going on that I couldn't process at that point in my brain. And I remember thinking, well, we gotta go help them. We've gotta go wash off these seabirds. And my parents, not being, remember, the hippy-dippy tree-hugging types, were just looking at me going, kid, I don't think so. We're not going to Alaska to wash off seabirds. And it was probably a couple years later, though, that, it was around that time, sorry, backtrack. It was around that time that I did start doing drawings of the earth with garbage cans floating all over it and hairspray cans burning holes in the ozone layer and picking through my parents' garbage for recyclables. But it wasn't until a couple years later that I started paying attention to the products that we used every day and put on our bodies. I remember going over to a friend's house who had a hippy-dippy, crunchy granola mom. They had, I remember noticing in the bathroom, licorice toothpaste and herbal shampoo. And this was, late 80s, early 90s. There weren't a lot of those things around. It's not like now where you see, herbal essences everywhere. It was unusual. And I remember going back to my parents' bathroom, standing there in the shower one day and deciding to pick up a shampoo bottle and flip it over and look at the ingredient list. And not seeing licorice, not seeing herbs, not seeing anything I could pronounce actually, and thinking, geez, what is all this stuff? And do we need it? And I guess not really, because products exist out there that don't actually use it. And the truth is well, at that point, I remember turning to my parents and saying, we've got to get rid of this stuff. We're going to go to the health food store, we're going to get some of these products. And again, they were like, that's nice, kid, but we're going to stick to what we got going on with the Pantene and the Colgate. And so I remember taking my bus girl earned dollars and marching over to the health food store and the closest body shop, and reaching for the Banana Body Shop shampoo and all that stuff. Okay, not all of those products ended up being as natural as I'd hoped. To this day, that Banana Body Shop shampoo still contains 4 parabens, estrogen-mimicking parabens, which the Body Shop would justify as saying, well, they're naturally sourced and, there's nothing wrong with them, but I choose not to want to add more estrogen to my diet by putting it on my hair. And so, but still, at that time, it felt political. It felt right. Like every time I was reaching for a product, labeled natural or whatnot, that I was voting for cleaner rivers, greener pastures, and happier bunnies along the way. And you know what? We are. We are across the nation, across the continent. Every time we walk into a store and choose natural, and choose sustainable, and choose green and eco-friendly, we are voting for a more greener, happier, cleaner version of Canada. The problem is, well, the good news is that now, because of all those Canadians and North Americans just standing in their shower going, what is all this stuff? Do we need it? I heard something funny about parabens, and I don't know if they're actually a good thing. Because of all those moments, you can walk into any drugstore in this country and now see major brands, big name brands that have gone paraben free, that are pushing their free of everything. And that is because of us. That is because we are standing there in the shower going, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if we need this. I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if I'm comfortable with it. And so we are the ones making this change happen. It is not coming from a higher source. It is not coming from the top down from government. It is us expressing our discomfort and having the change happen. Unfortunately, the toxic journey doesn't end there. Unfortunately, companies are really clever. They know when we've picked up on one ingredient that bothers us, and they shapeshift, and they bring in preservatives that we don't recognize and use that instead. Now, for instance, instead of parabens these days, you will find an ingredient on some of your shampoos that most of you could not pronounce, and I can't say I can either. Methyl isothialamine is the shortest one of the two. And that ingredient, the new paraben replacement, is on Health Canada's hot list of restricted ingredients because it's such an irritant. But the problem with all this to me is that companies just keep sneaking in pollutants into our everyday products. And really this is about as in your face as pollution gets. It is about as up close and personal as pollution gets. I mean, we are rubbing it on our skin, smoothing it into our hair, I'm not going to keep just gesturing all the way down through the shower motions, but you get the point. We are being really intimate with all these pollutants, and I am tired of it. And I think a lot of Canadians now are having that same feeling, going, I don't know if all this is safe and whether we need it. And what really gets my goat going, probably my biggest pet peeve, is when these pollutants sneak in via naturally branded products. When the company says it's natural, when the company says it's organic, and they put it in their brand name, they put it on their packaging, and instead they're sneaking in a lot of ingredients that really should not be in there. And to me, there's just so much lousy labeling going on. And what gets my goat is that they're stealing the thunder away from brands that are actually doing it legitimately. Good people that are actually saying, you know what, we want to make this sustainable, we want to make clean products that are non-toxic and safe for families across Canada. Now, just a little side story for you. I went into a Shoppers Drug Mart not long ago, and I was, my partner asked me if I could pop by and grab some product he needed for work. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Well, 90 minutes later, I am on my knees in the personal care aisle, and I am surrounded by products, reading labels after label after label. I have to admit, I have to confess, I have a bit of an addiction. I am addicted to label reading. I cannot be let loose inside a drugstore without coming out 2 hours later, you know, with my pockets filled with products, or notes at least on products, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, who out there is calling themselves natural, who out there isn't, what's in the products, what are the latest ingredients out there. And I brought with me 3 of the products that I found there today, or that day. And I will share with you what I found. Okay. Of the products that were calling themselves natural in some way, I have 0% aluminum Adidas. Have any of you seen this one? Yeah, 0% aluminum Adidas with cotton technology. We'll start with this one. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go through them all. Number 2, Degree Nature Effects. Okay, we got that. And number 3, Secret Natural Mineral. Okay, now you take any guesses. Out of these 3, which do you think is the most legit, the most natural? Any guesses? Adidas? The answer is none. None. And to me, that's really frustrating, because when I walk into a drugstore like that, or I walk in anywhere and I see products branded as natural, big name products, I get really excited, because to me, it's a sign that things are changing and the companies have figured out that we want natural. And it's also hope that the big boys are getting it right, and we need them on board. We need them actually offering up products that are genuinely natural. But when I picked this one up, I saw, okay, 0% aluminum, cotton technology, bigger than the actual word Adidas itself. I don't know about you, but if cotton actually kept me from having body odor, I could just wear a plain t-shirt all day and never have to wear deodorant again. That hasn't happened yet for me so far in my life, but you may be luckier. Now, in this product, 0% aluminum, okay, so they're really clear about that. I'm looking for what the active ingredient would be. Well, the cotton powder is like the very last ingredient, pretty much. Buried in between a lot of palm-derived ingredients. Just so you know, as a side note, palm is an ingredient right now responsible for a lot of clear cutting in Malaysian and Indonesian rainforests. They're basically burning down rainforests to plant palm trees to give us these palmatic acid and palm oils, etc. So in amongst all these palm-derived ingredients, I find the active ingredient, and it is, instead of aluminum, triclosan. Put up your hand if you've heard of triclosan before. Yeah, triclosan, the federal government is in the middle of declaring toxic, an official danger to the environment and wildlife, aquatic life in particular, because well, its effect on aquatic life downstream from us when we are using it. And it is an antibacterial ingredient. You'll find it in your hand soap, in your dish soap. It'll be in Colgate Total. It's in a lot of acne wash. It's in deodorants like this. And the thing that bugs me about this is people are reaching for this product, generally looking for an alternative product that is safer than their concerns around aluminum. And instead, they end up with an ingredient which I consider worse. And that is Exhibit A of driving me bonkers. And Exhibit B is Degree Nature Effects. Degree Nature Effects, I thought was actually had a lot of potential, because it said it had tea tree oil in here, and that is a natural antibacterial, so fantastic. But their very first ingredient is cyclopentasiloxane. And cyclopentasiloxane, again, Environment Canada declared this one toxic to wildlife. Said it builds up and bioaccumulates in wildlife downstream. And then, of course, though, a year later, after industry pressure, basically Environment Canada pulled back the ranking and said, okay, you know what, quietly, we're not going to call it toxic anymore because industry complained and said that we're not releasing enough of it into the environment. So that is ingredient number 1. And ingredient number 2, the aluminum we were talking about. Now, just quickly, the last one here, secret natural mineral. This is the one I believed in the most because it said, secret natural mineral, naturally derived odor protection. So there are a few more specifics here. And I thought, okay, this is good. A lot of hope here. Once you can peel back the ingredient list, well, the first ingredient in here was cyclopentasiloxane again. And now, any guesses as to what the naturally derived odor protection is? Aluminum. They're good. Aluminum, yes, is a zero. It is actually from nature. You know, so is asbestos, so is snake venom, so are lots of things that we don't necessarily choose to want to put on our bodies or to purchase because of sustainability reasons. So another example of some of the greenwashing out there that keeps me on my toes for sure in the job that I do in hunting out, you know, legitimately green products. But you know, what's the solution here? Solution is, 1, don't believe the hype. The marketers wrote the hype, so don't believe the hype. If it just says natural or eco-friendly somewhere in the front, you gotta push deeper and look for specifics because that word alone won't guarantee you anything. So read the ingredient lists. And even if you don't know all the ingredients to stay away from, well, go on my website, ecoholic.ca, and I've got a main 15 list of ingredients to avoid that you can print off for free. Keep it in your pocket, put it in your wallet, wherever you want. That's from ecoholic.ca. Now, so you're looking for specifics, you're quickly scanning the ingredients to see if, hey, they're calling themselves organic, is there even one organic ingredient in here? And sometimes there isn't. And on products like Organic Surge, there was only one organic ingredient, the final ingredient. And look for certification. Products that have third-party seals, like EcoCert or EcoLogo, so at least someone else is monitoring the claims, letting you know that there are people who are making sure that is legit. The big problem for me, about all this is that they're not just doing what marketers always do, selling us products and making their products look better to make us buy them, and you know, things that we should know about already. No, but the problem with it is that they're selling us products that end up adding more toxins to our already toxic load. And we do not need any more in our toxic soup. You know, a newborn baby is born in the world today with up to 350 trace chemicals in the umbilical cord. And to me, that is a polluted world that we do not need to add to. And I was kind of curious, though, after all this, whether, you know, how toxic I would be. So I did a little bit of testing on myself, and I actually sent away a sample of, I peed on a stick, and I cut 3 chunks of hair out, and I sent it off to a lab in Alberta called the Rocky Mountain Institute. And I thought, you know what, this should be interesting. They're going to tell me what's in me. I'm very curious about all the pollutants inside me. And at the same time, I thought, what are they going to find? I've been living like this forever. You know, I live cleanly. I use natural products. I eat organic. Well, when the results came back, my jaw just hit the ground. I had all kinds of stuff in me, from styrene, which comes from styrofoam, and the doctor said, don't worry, those are just normal levels of styrofoam. I said, what? Normal levels of carcinogenic styrofoam in all of us? Okay. And the truth is, I remember having a bowl of Chinese takeout 2 nights before in styrofoam, specifically to see whether the test would pick it up. It was there. It was right there in my test. And also I found low levels of phthalates, which I thought were good because phthalates are the hormone disruptors in scented products. So I thought, okay, that means I'm staying away from scented products. That's a good thing. I had a spike in xylene higher than 75% of North Americans. And when I asked the good doctor, the medical clinic doing the testing, I said, well, where's my xylene levels coming? Where are these xylene levels coming from? And he said, have you been sniffing markers lately? No, I haven't been sniffing markers. He said, well, it could be coming from things like inks, dyes, oil paint. I said, whoa, back up, oil paint. Oh, you know what? Some oil paint was accidentally applied in my apartment like 6 months ago, but it doesn't smell anymore. And he said, oh, it doesn't have to smell. It'll off-gas in your apartment for months or years. oh, God. And then my hair results came in. And my levels of mercury were here, my levels of lead were here, and I was even more shocked. I thought, where are these coming from? It's not like I eat a tuna sandwich every day. It's not like I filter my water. What's the problem? And so like any good journalist, I called my mother first. And I said, Mom, where are these levels coming from? And she said, really just one word, oh, Shawinigan. I thought, right, okay, yeah. Right close to where we lived and where I went to school and where my dad had his McDonald's, there was, a paint factory that was definitely emitting lead for a long time, until lead was banned from paint. And there was aluminum refinery right in the downtown center pretty much, emitting mercury in the 80s. And there was a pulp and paper mill also emitting mercury in the 80s. And so I thought, all right, these are the pollutants that I'm stuck with. You know what, this is my toxic load, newborn baby has its toxic load, whether you live on an organic farm, you live in an urban center, you live in a factory town, we all have our toxic loads. We all have pollutants in us that will probably stay in us. As the good doctor told me, my lead and mercury levels will be there like that for life. But my question is, what are the toxins that we can control? What are the ones we can get a grip on? And the answer is the products that we bring into our households every day, that we choose to bring into our households and put on our bodies and use in our households every day. And those are a lot easier to get a grip on than some of the big issue issues, and some of the big picture issues. Now, I really recommend cutting out the chemical middleman altogether and going direct to nature as often as possible. I mean, walk right to your kitchen and knock the Lubriderm aside, the Vaseline intensive care, and literally just grab a bottle of oil. A bottle of oil can be used as moisturizer on your skin, moisturizer on your face, hot oil treatment for your hair. You can put it on a baby's bottom instead of petroleum jelly. You can put it, you can use it as shaving oil instead of shaving cream on your legs or on your face, just after a shower, and that's just from one ingredient. And you can also, honey. Another thing in your kitchen, honey is amazing. You can take honey and put it straight on a wound. If you've got a cut or a burn, do not be shy. You don't bother the polysporin. Just put the honey straight on there, put a Band-Aid on it, and you have your natural antibacterial. In fact, a study published in Pediatrics found that honey was as or more effective at suppressing coughs than over-the-counter cough suppressants. So if you take a tablespoon of dark honey before you go to bed with a cough, you've actually got a pretty mighty potent solution offered up direct from nature, straight in your kitchen. And really, it matters not just to our health, but to the health of the planet. All of us involved, because when we end up hurting ourselves, what we do with a lot of these products is we put them on our bodies. They end up going down the drain, and we end up affecting wildlife downstream, polluting our water, polluting our air, polluting the wildlife we end up eating. And it all becomes a vicious circle, and I call it the big old boomerang effect. It's kind of like when we throw something out into nature and it comes right back at us and smacks us upside the head. That is basically what's happening with the pollutants that we're putting on ourselves that end up back in nature, coming right back at us. So yes, small changes matter. Small changes make a difference. Small changes affect not just your life, but the lives of people and species and critters all around us. So I brought a couple examples of how small acts can make a difference beyond just your circle. And one I brought with me is baking soda. And the crisis that this helps avert, believe it or not, is the hormone disruptor crisis. Now, just last week, the UN came out and said that we have a big problem on our hands. There are way too many chemicals in the world affecting our hormones, that are messing with our hormones in some way and affecting fertility rates, affecting cancer rates, affecting obesity. And they urged governments around the world to get a grip on it. That it's completely out of control and no one is doing much about it, other than a bit of a whack-a-mole strategy of attacking one hormone disruptor at a time. So I'm suggesting let's cut out so many of the products we use every day by using an ingredient like the oil or baking soda. Now, this one box of baking soda can replace 50 products in your household, many of which are laced with hormone disruptors, like that Colgate Total toothpaste. It's got triclosan in it. You can literally use this with a little water, you've got your toothpaste. This in your hands in the morning, right out of a shower when you're still wet, as deodorant. And I put it to work on my friends this summer, and I said, okay, go biking in 40-degree heat now. Come back and tell me how this worked for you. And I have friends on air, anchors, that were like, you know what, I'm in the middle of interviewing, whatever, the Prime Minister right now, and I'm wearing that baking soda and it really works. And so this alone can replace so many personal care products, mouthwash, which some of them have parabens in them. If you just mix this with water, you can replace pretty much most of your cleaners, especially if you combine this with vinegar. It can be used as an ant powder instead of toxic ant killers that you bring home. So many products, and by switching to this instead of those 50 products, you're saving about $250 along the way. I brought another super duper easy product to test out that can help save the earth in a big picture way, and that is jeans. Jeans. This is a pair of secondhand jeans. And this pair of jeans, to make it new, involved, according to Levi's, 3,000 liters of water. 3,000 liters of water from the time you're growing the cotton to the time they process the jean in the factory. 3,000 liters of water for just one pair of jeans. And you multiply that by all the clothes that are in your closet, all the jeans that are in your closet, and that's a hell of a lot of water, especially when you consider the fact that we actually produce 5 billion jeans in the world every year. And that's just the jeans. So I'm asking you all to switch as much as possible to secondhand clothes. Hit your thrift stores, hit your vintage stores, hold clothing swaps with friends. I mean, this particular dress, belt, everything, it was all made out of recycled fibers. So taking old sweaters, making it into new ones, and not having to use new fabric as much as possible. That helps definitely in a big way solve our water crisis. I mean, we're all talking about saving water in the home and not letting the taps run. But just getting a few more secondhand items of clothing instead of new ones will make an even bigger difference. Now, small, easy peasy act number 3 that helps save the world and save you money at the same time is a bag of beans. A big old bag of beans. Now, you can pick any bean you want, you can have a variety of beans, but why does this help save the world? Well, it helps the crisis of climate change. In fact, a report just came out last year saying that having more people eat less meat on a regular basis is the #1 fastest way to get a grip on climate change, beyond everything else. Because the meat we eat is so carbon intensive, it is so greenhouse gas intensive to raise, to feed, etc. In fact, if you just change a steak meal for a family of 4 over to a bean meal or a vegetarian meal, once a week, you're, over the course of a year, saving enough greenhouse gases to basically equivalent to not driving for 3 months. And not only that, but the average North American eats 50 pounds more meat per person than we did 50 years ago per year. 50 pounds more. When you put that all out on this table, that's a lot more meat. And our grandmothers didn't consider themselves vegetarian. They weren't. They ate meat. They just ate less than we do today. So I think we can all afford to eat a little less meat and to try a little more meatless Mondays and tofu Tuesdays and help shrink our carbon footprint around the world. By the way, the latest stats on meat and carbon footprint, they used to say that all the livestock of the world added up to 20% or 18% of the world's greenhouse gases. The latest estimate that calculates the animals exhaling carbon dioxide brings that up to 50 or 51% of the world's greenhouse gases related to meat animals. So big difference from just having a few more vegetarian meals a couple days a week. And small, easy peasy act that changes the world and saves you money involves, and number 4, involves a rotten banana. Now this rotten banana is an example, basically symbolic of all our food waste. Right now in North America, we throw out about 30 to 40% of the food that we bring home every year. And if you picture it this way, I mean, going to the grocery store, you pick up 3 bags and you throw one of them on the ground before you even get home. That's basically what we're doing when we go grocery shopping, and we let 1/3 of our produce wilt, rot, go stale, and then let it go in the garbage at the end of the day. And so I'm saying, 1, let's try reduce the amount that we eat, make a meal plan for the week, and when you go grocery shopping, shop at that meal plan so we can kind of reduce the amount of stuff we're actually buying, save ourselves some money, and not throw as much away. And then with the stuff that does end up going stale, because no matter how good your meal plan is, you will end up with wilting things in your freezer. Put up your hand if you've got something wilting in your fridge right now. Yeah, pretty much all of us have something going stale or rotten or wilting. Well, you can help get a grip on this by, just making sure you use those scraps. Take your, if it's a banana, really easy, put it in banana bread, put it in your freezer to use later in shakes or pancakes or whatever it might be. But there are other uses for this as well. I was going to open it and start rubbing it on my face, but I think that might be a little bit better for another time. There are body care ingredients you can make with all these produce. If you have rotting fruit, not just bananas, but berries going bad in your fridge, just mash it up, put it on your face as a really great face mask. Put in a little milk that's about to go off too, full of beautiful lactic acid, which you'll find in premium skincare. And you're using up the ingredients that are going off, and you're saving yourself money, you're not letting it go to waste. And we're helping to reduce all the food wastage in the world, which really, by the way, involves throwing out about the stat is 40 trillion liters of water get thrown out every time we throw out food. Because it takes so much water to make these bananas, to grow our watermelons, to grow our meat. And so not throwing so much out actually also helps avert the water crisis. So many ways to, in our everyday lives, help solve big picture issues. And we have so much power at our fingertips to really help get a grip on some of these issues, and we have no idea how powerful we all are. We have so much power we're completely unaware of. I mean, and really the key to that power is just right here, using our vocal cords and speaking up and just letting people know when you see something that you think should be different. When you have questions, raise them. When you see something that could be greener, that could be more sustainable, bring it up. I have a pop quiz for you. Put up your hand. Okay, what happens when you see, last time you saw something in your life, what happened when you saw that happen, something that disturbed you, if you just kept your mouth closed and didn't say anything? The last time you saw something that bothered you and you didn't say a thing, what happened? Nothing. Nothing, right? I mean, when we keep it to ourselves, when we keep our mouths closed, when we sit back and take a back seat, nothing changes. So I'm encouraging you all to use your power, well, one, as a consumer, and pressure the businesses that you support, the shops that you go to, the brands that you buy from, to go greener. And it doesn't have to be a big picket out front, but my dad was never an activist, but he always did like to complain. And he would go into his local grocery store for years before local produce became trendy and say, excuse me, it's harvest season right now. Where are the local produce? Where's the local apples? I can't see any of them. And he'd go in week after week, and then he'd pull the grocery manager aside and said, so what's going on here? And eventually they started avoiding him, but eventually enough Canadians started doing the same thing, and because of that, we've seen the rise of the local food movement. Because individuals across the country speak up, and they team up with other individuals who are speaking up. And if we don't speak up, then no one will have any clue that this is what we want. From the businesses around us, from the politicians around us, from our schools, from our offices around us. And so take a page from my dad. You don't have to consider yourself an activist, but just speak up when you see something in the world that you're not particularly happy about and that you would like to see different. And I also encourage you all to try it these days, new wave, by going to sites like change.org or avaz.org to start your own petition. There was one 14-year-old girl, I think she went on, she was annoyed that there was an ingredient in Gatorade that was related to flame retardants. And she started a petition by herself in her living room, and sure enough, more and more people signed it, and now Gatorade has decided to take that ingredient out of its product. And this is happening across the country, across the continent, across the world. So I encourage you all to think, this is my homework for you, think of something that's been bugging you lately in terms of sustainability, not about your annoying roommate or how your husband didn't pick up the socks on the floor, but think something sustainability-wise that has been bugging you, and think, okay, what petition can I start? It's really easy. It's so easy. Just go to change.org or avaz.org or one of those sites and start your own. I really encourage it. It doesn't get any easier than that. So use your power to affect change in your community, at school, with, at the businesses you support. And you do have one final power in your toolkit, and that is your power to affect and change loved ones. Now, I know you can't always nag friends because they're not forced to love you. They don't have to stick around if you keep badgering them incessantly. But you can nag family members, and I can tell you this from experience. My poor parents had 4 nagging children that harassed them for years into not leaving the taps running, not leaving the lights on, to the point that their house was so dark all the time that you would think they would get burglared at any minute because they were, terrified of putting the lights on in there. But the point is that we should all be encouraging the people around us to share what we're passionate about and let them know what's on our minds. Let them know what you just found out about triclosan or what you found out about genes or whatever it might be. And if we all keep sharing our passions, if we all keep spreading the word, then it spreads out like a domino effect across the country. And now my parents, like I said, weren't activists. They were not hippies in the 60s, but my mother always told me that you can change the world just by changing your little corner of it. And that if we each work on our little corners, we eventually have a better world to call home. So listen to my mom and keep working on your corners. Thank you.